everybody to the Wednesday, March 18th Garrison Board of Education Business Meeting and Community Budget Forum. Dusty, will you please call the roll?
Jocelyn Apicello. Here. Eric Arnold.
Here.
Jennifer Harrington-Wilson. Here. Dan Jasnow.
Here.
Peter Lesser.
Here.
Kent Schott.
Excused.
Sarah Torma. Here.
Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to do something a little bit unusual for us and go into a quick executive session to start off the meeting. So be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby enters into executive session for the purpose of discussing proposed litigation. We expect this to be no more than 15 or 30 minutes.
Do you want me to leave?
No, you can
We're
stay.
gonna
We're going to Yeah, we'll be right back.
Okay.
May I have a motion?
Just for me.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. May I have a motion to re-enter the public meeting? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Sorry for the delay. We are moving on to the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accepts the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Superintendent's report.
Good evening, members of the board, folks out in the public. My superintendent's report is going to be incredibly brief. We have a lot to go over this evening. With our budget presentation as well as the presentation of district technology, proposed district technology plan. I always like to start with some of the fun things that happen in our school, and we had an 8th grade versus staff basketball game last week. It was fun, it was spirited. The adults won. Some of us paid for it and needed to ice and stretch afterwards. But it was such an incredible event. We had not only the highlight of it was the 8th grade student staff basketball, but we also had a lot of activities for younger kids. It was an obstacle course. There was a free throw shooting contest, and it happened right after school. And I can't imagine seeing a large crowd in an event like this at 3:30, 3:45. But there were so many students and families and grandparents there. It was really, really well attended. So thank you to everybody that participated. But I also want a special shout out to Ms. Clark. She arranged the whole thing, was the hype person, got all the right kids in the right places to make sure this thing went out without a hitch. And thank you, there's too many for me to list, all the parent volunteers that came to sell free throw tickets, to scoop ice cream. It was an incredible event. So just another illustration of how this community comes together and supports each other. Couple things today, started our parent-teacher conferences. So as you know, sorry families that you got your kids back a little early. We're going to do it again on the 24th to finish our parent-teacher conferences. Please come and visit on March 24th at the Desmond Fish Library for our art exhibit. There's a lot of new, we're really excited, there's a lot of new art displays that we haven't done before that'll be new, and it's going to be really nice to see all of our students' work. On March 27th, we have our Professional Learning Day. And remember, that's staff only, so if you send your kids in, we're going to send them right back to you. And March 30th through the 3rd is our spring recess. I also want to just make a brief announcement for families in the community that request private or parochial school transportation. Those requests are due April 1st. You can find the request form on our district website under transportation. Lastly, and I will send out a parent square, just to remind folks, like, the weather's getting warmer, we're starting to think about camps, we're starting to think about summer plans. We adopted a calendar where the first day of school is September 1st, 2026. That's before Labor Day, and I just want to remind families as you start to think about camp and vacation plans that that's out there. That's just unique to where Labor Day falls this year. That concludes my superintendent's report. Happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thanks, Greg. Any questions? All right, moving on to the board president's remarks. All right, so I wanted to provide the board and the community with an update on our 2021 capital project. As folks may recall, in addition to a number of other facilities upgrades, our 2021 capital project included a major upgrade to the building's HVAC system. This system was designed by the architecture engineering firm Tetra Tech and manufactured and provided by Trane as the HVAC equipment manufacturer. Among other things, the design for the new HVAC system that was presented to the board called for the inclusion of DOAS, or Dedicated Outdoor Air System units, that would allow the district to move away from oil and gas as primary heating fuels. Unfortunately, the HVAC system that was delivered did not include DOAS units and is not achieving minimum performance standards, resulting in classrooms that do not maintain comfortable temperatures, an issue that was particularly apparent this winter with the extreme temperatures. We continue to engage with Tetra Tech to address the system's shortcomings and have dedicated significant time, including the time of our administration and facilities team, to try to solve this issue, but we have yet to achieve a solution that is fair to the district and its taxpayers. If we are unable to resolve this issue before the end of the current budget cycle, it appears increasingly likely that the matter will require litigation. In the meantime, while the district considers potential litigation against Tetra Tech, we are planning to move forward with a plan to fund HVAC system improvements through our energy performance contract, which we will discuss during our budget presentation later on in this meeting. We remain hopeful that we will be able to reach a fair solution without litigation, and we are committed as a board to protecting district taxpayers and enforcing Tetra Tech's contractual obligations. We will update the public as appropriate as this process moves forward. Any questions on that? All right, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is board communications presentations with our budget presentation and community budget forum.
So this evening, this is our second budget presentation. Some of this information is exactly the same as our last presentation, and some of it is new, and we'll be able to highlight both things. So first and foremost, our budget objectives have not changed. This budget stays within the allowable tax levy, and that is really important. We want to provide the community with a transparent budget process that's based on input from our finance committee and our key stakeholders. The other thing, and I said it last time and it bears repeating, that we have wonderful resources, our buildings, our grounds, our forest. This budget ensures that we enhance, repair, and properly maintain the district's facilities and infrastructure. We want to make sure that our budget lines maintain actual spending and align with reasonable projections. We want to maintain our staffing levels and support programs that promote the district's strategic goals, initiatives, and always our vision of a graduate. This is our vision of a graduate. It is our guiding light. It is the principle in which we make our decisions, and that has not changed, and we have spoken about the Vogue extensively. We have 4 main budget priorities. One, first and foremost, why we're here is instructional programs and initiatives. 2, the people that make that happen, which is our staffing. 3, where we make that happen, which is our infrastructure and capital projects. And lastly, how we get the kids here so that we can make that wonderful instruction happen, so transportation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about new instructional programs that are included in the 26-27 school budget. We've talked and we'll have a presentation at the end of the school year about our Empowered Classroom Fellowship. That is a year-long fellowship that looks at innovative teaching and learning, and that really leverages this work with our staff. We have 8 fellows that will, some of which you'll hear from at the end of the school year, but they're really focusing on innovative classroom design, engaging, future-focused, hands-on instruction. So that's, we're going to support that in next year's budget so that they can do those things that they've learned. We're going to pilot a new literacy and writing program as we're starting to map out our curriculum, which we'll also speak about, as I've spoken about in superintendent's goal, is one of the things we noticed is we've really done well mapping out our reading program, but we have to relook at our writing and our literacy programs across the district. So there's some funds to pilot new writing and literacy programs next year so that we can find the program that aligns with our objectives, that aligns with our culture, that also aligns with the curriculum maps that we're building this current school year. We're going to talk a little bit about the immersive outdoor education learning space and why that's critically important to aligning our work in environmental education so that we can provide authentic hands-on learning experiences in the school forest. We're going to talk about a new playground. Our preschool playground is at the end of life and has been identified as needing to be replaced. And we need to do that. So we have about $100,000, which we'll talk about later, for partial funding of a new primary school playground, but we are also working collaboratively with GSEF, and we think we can raise the additional funds needed to make that happen. We need a new athletic scoreboard. If you've been in our gym, first of all, it's located in the wrong location. Second of all, there are a lot of lights missing, and we can't replace them because they don't make them anymore because it's original to the early 2000s when that space was built. So finally, we're going to be able to replace that as well. We also are looking at new athletic or soccer goals. Those are also at the end of life. We're going to continue a lot of the programs that we have spoken to with the board about last year. One, we have a wonderful Green Ribbon Award-winning environmental education program, including a Youth Climate Summit. We're going to continue to support that work. We have incredible clinicians and SEL programming. It's really important. It's part of what makes the culture here in Garrison what it is. We're going to continue to support that. If you've been to our concerts, you know that our grades 3 through 5 and our 6 through 8 chorus and bands just keep getting better and better and better every year, and we need to continue to support that. We have an incredible theater program. If you saw a production of Annie Jr., that is a performance assessment of how we're doing in theater, and we want to continue to support that. We have our youngest students involved in yoga, and they really enjoy it. We have e-music. We want to continue to support all of that. This district a few years ago has included money to have out-of-classroom extracurricular experiences and field trips. We've been able to leverage that to create experiences for kids that are memorable. We want to make sure that our middle school extracurricular activities, clubs and athletics, some are fairly new, like our podcasting club and our debate club. We want to support that in next year's budget because there's high interest from our students, and we want to make sure we support that. As we spoke about this year, we included in this current budget, which used to be grant funded, our Summer Scholars Program. That is a highly attended program, and the feedback we have from families is that it's an important program. We want to continue that as well. New this year was a food service program, thanks to our partners at the Putnam Valley Central School District. They've been wonderful partners. A couple bumps along the way, but we're ironing those things out, and we want to continue. For the most part, we have high rates of students participating. Anywhere from 120 to 160 students a day are getting meals. We want to continue to support that. We worked really hard on our intervention systems, our multi-tiered systems of support. We're going to continue that work. We've talked at a presentation last year about our clinicians, our school psychologists, our school counselor. They are wonderful and such a support not only to the whole system but also to individual students and staff. They're supported. We have a special patrol officer that has been a really good addition to our school community. This budget also continues to support that. One of the focus that, thanks to Mike McDonald, our Director of Innovation and Learning, is we really focused on leveraging high-quality professional development for teachers in the areas of curriculum, instruction, and equity. We want to be able to have funds to continue that work. The feedback we've gotten from our staff about the professional learning that we've been able to provide this year If I would tell you that it's probably the best they've had, and that's directly from our staff. And we want to continue to support that. We think it's important because that trickles down to our students. And lastly, what's very unique about Garrison is students and families, by the time the students are in 8th grade, they get to choose. They have a choice of 3 outstanding high schools that we have wonderful partnerships with. And we want this budget supports continuing those relationships with those 3 schools, and that would be Putnam Valley, Haldane, and James O'Neill High School. I'm going to talk a little bit about enrollment. I'll talk a little bit later about pre-K enrollment, but we know that it is capped at 18. We project 18 students being in that program next year. Our kindergarten class sizes are projected to be at 15, first grade is projected to be at 18, second grade at 14. Third grade is 16, and we're looking at fourth grade being, I'm sorry, those were class sizes, but fourth grade being at 31, so we would have 2 sections of that, fifth grade being at 19, and our bridge program being at 4 students and still 1 section. Sixth grade would be at 22, seventh grade at 17, and 8th grade at 21. Our high school projections are relatively flat. We were at 101 students in our high schools. We're projecting 96 students for next year. A little bit of a decrease, but relatively flat. And we do at times have students move into the district and enroll in high school, so that could go up as well. Major headline about staffing, we're not requesting or do we need any new staff, so our staffing is flat. And I won't go through all of it, I did it last time, and this will be on our website for review. We have currently 31.15 teachers, faculty, and support staff. We're projecting the exact same number of staff for next year. Included in this year's budget, just to give you, and then I'll turn it over to Joe in a minute, but included in this year's budget, again, $10,000, we talked about that, we're just kind of putting some numbers to this. $10,000 for our Youth Climate Summit, $25,000 for field trips. Our Summer Scholars Program costs about $30,000. Our SPO program costs about $54,000. And our School Lunch Program, which we didn't know the cost when we first initially put this budget together for this year. It's much lower than we expected. With all costs associated with it, we're looking about just under $50,000 in it. I'm gonna give it over to Joe, and he's gonna then move on to what are the increases, what do they look like. Thank you, Joe.
Greg. So some of the stuff is the same as the last presentation, and then there's a few items that are changed. So the playground, that's a big component of the budget. It's considered an equipment. The balance of the equipment for the playground is going to be provided by GSEF. And then we have $40,000 towards empowered classroom, furniture and supplies, the scoreboard and the soccer goals that were mentioned. And then we did make some adjustments to special education transportation, so that increase is a little bit less. It was over 150,000 before, and now it's at 75. And then through BOCES, we have some of our technology services that was originally budgeted in the current budget as direct to Acture is budgeted as a part of a COSR through BOCES, so there are some adjustments there. And then we have the wireless access points, so the points that, like that one in the back there that's in every room, that as of July 1st, that's no longer going to be supported by the manufacturers, so we have to get new ones. Okay, so this is the changes from the March 4th presentations. We have some additions. We have an increase for legal for pending litigation, an increase for supplemental heating if we have to provide that for the next school year, and an increase of the energy performance contract of $154,000, and then obviously the special education transportation is decreased. So those are the budget adjustments between last budget and the current one. So the transportation for next year is projected a little bit lower at $1.2 319 million. And that's the inflation as of December. This is the same information that we had in the last presentation. Garrison is bargain. The whole public should know that. But this is our opportunity to tell the public that. The tax cap is essentially the same as we looked at it the last time. So that we're really, the main component that we're really driving forward in the tax cap is we're keeping the capital expenditures and the capital exclusion to be the same amount of money. That's the main component. And at the cap would be an increase of $264,418, or 2.27%, and that's what we're requesting that the board adopts as a part of the budget. And that amounts to, for the average household in Phillipstown, $178 increase per year, and Pot Valley, the median home, would be $99 for the year. That's an estimated increase. That's if everything stayed the same. That isn't always the case. The equalization rates change. Your assessment may change. Your neighbor's assessment may change. Your neighbor's deductions may change. Their exemptions. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. But this is as if everything was the same way it was in August when we set the levy. This is what it would be. We're not seeking an override. Okay, so with those budget adjustments, the actual budget amount is $15,487,328, and that was done with the increase in the amount of undesignated fund balance by around $200,000, a little bit under that. And we are still recommending the use of the debt service reserve. We do have over $700,000 of debt service reserve that's available. So since there are significant capital expenditures, it makes sense to use it. And this is just the revised version. Basically, in the 26-27, it increases the usage of fund balance by around $200,000. And the biggest areas where you see changes is general support, and that's primarily from the increase for the supplemental heating and the legal expenses, and those things are in the general support area. And that's a budget-to-budget increase of $806,000, or 5.5%. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about the energy performance contract, and any time, feel free to ask questions. It's obviously not a big crowd tonight, so you can take as long as you want to ask questions, so please go ahead. So it hasn't started yet. We hadn't included it as part of the current budget. If we don't use, if it doesn't start, in this budget year, we will just reduce the amount of debt service reserve that we put towards the current budget, so that it basically keeps the capital levy the same. Go ahead.
Can you just pause there, and I know we talked about it last year, but explain what an energy performance contract is and how it works for the budget.
Yes. So the energy performance contract is essentially a capital project. So it's dictated by the Offices of Facilities Planning at New York State Education Department. But it's in a certain format. So it's essentially a mechanism to pay for improvements to your building which save energy or cost, and use some of the savings from that improvements to help offset the cost of buying the improvements. And you typically do it over a lot of the stuff that is in a school building is an estimated 15-year life. So it's borrowed over a 15-year term, the funds for it. And essentially, you have to, when you submit this to SED, it's an architect that submits it on your behalf. It is done in such a way that there is the amount of energy that the project is going to save is calculated for, and a rate of that energy is calculated. And then that is put against the actual cost of buying the improvements. And then as the project is ongoing, there is a third-party monitor that's basically checking to see if that energy savings actually did take place. So it's a capital project, and it has similar methods of approval, but it is, in terms of New York State and the rules, it's considered an ordinary contingent expense, which means you can budget for it like you would any other budget line item that you have. So you don't have to do a separate referendum for it, but you have to budget for it and tell the public you're using budgeted funds to do it.
But to be clear, because one of the things we've talked about in last year's budget, and again in this year's budget, is budgeting every year for capital expenditures so we don't have to go out and borrow money. But this is a way in which we have to go out and borrow money, essentially.
Yeah, we do have to borrow money because the amount of equipment that's in it is prohibitive for us to buy it outright. Yes.
Can I add one thing, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of this project also has some guarantees for energy savings.
Yes.
So if we don't realize the energy savings that third party is monitoring, there is a mechanism to get reimbursed for any savings that are not realized based upon all of the calculations that the engineers do. Is that correct?
Yes, it's on a per kilowatt hour basis based upon what is in the contract documents. Now, if the kilowatt hour per kilowatt hour changes, you don't get the difference. It's just they demonstrate that a certain number of kilowatt hours that you will save.
So to simplify a little bit, we're getting a loan. We're going to pay for the cost of the loan in part through our annual savings in energy costs.
Right.
Is that right?
And then the rest is part of the capital component of the budget, yes.
Right. And so during our first budget presentation, we also accounted for having an EPC, but we previously assumed that the EPC would mostly cover envelope improvements. Is that correct? So things like
Insulation
and
and reduced energy use lighting, because there is still, even though a lot of it was done, there is still some more
right.
that needs to be replaced.
Right. So we were assuming we were going to do that previously, so the size of the loan that we're talking about for the EPC was sized to make those type of improvements. Now, given that we think we need to go out on our own and potentially solve this DOAS problem, we've right-sized this loan, the EPC loan, to account for us essentially financing the cost of purchasing the DOAS system that was not included in the HVAC that Tetra Tech delivered. Is that accurate?
Yes, yeah, so in a minute, we're going to get through all the different components, but the DOAS units, which all told, there's, I believe, 8 mechanical units that go in different portions of the building. That is the largest component of the overall cost that's being financed.
One more follow-up on this before we move on to what's in it. Are we able to use our debt service reserve line for this, either in this budget or in future budgets? Is that something, because we're still at a really healthy amount of debt service reserve, about 700,000, even, or 600,000 after the 100,000 plan for this budget?
Yes, we will be able to use that, and then also once the existing capital project officially gets closed out, that money that's left in the 2021 project will return to the debt service reserve, so it will be able to be used as well. The only thing you can't do is you can't use more than whatever your debt service expense is and capital expense is for the whole year. You can't use more than that, that's all.
But as we look year to year going out, because we're taking on essentially an expense that's going to be there for 15 years or so, for perhaps depending on how this plays out,
Right.
for this EPC, we could use debt service in the future to help fund it should we need to.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Yep. So this is something that needs to be done. We do have some improvements to the heating system that that are necessary, and requires SED approval just like any other capital project. So in order for us to start the approval process, we have to have it included in our budget, we have to have our budget approved, and then we can submit a project. So that's why it's in the budget for the full amount of what the financing is. So when we talk about this project, it is building envelope improvements, and that's typically insulation. And we'll get some pictures of where that would be. And then dedicated outdoor air systems, essentially, that provides fresh air and additional heating and cooling capacity. Control system upgrade, so basically, once the DOAS systems are in, there will be some reprogramming of the existing units that are in place in order for it to work together. There is something called destratification fans, and what that is like a large area like this. A lot of the, when heating season, a lot of the warm air basically stays at the top of the room, and this is fans to put it down to the bottom of the room where the people are, and to reduce the amount of heat loss, because obviously you lose heat through the roof. And then there are some lighting upgrades. There's a number of lights like those lights that are in the breezeway that look like they're kind of out of the Fifth Element, those brown ones. Those and some other ones are that are still fluorescent that we need to change out. There's a few of those that are in there. And the estimated payment is $247,598 a year, and that's 15 years at 5% interest, which is still what the current estimate is for interest.
And so, Joe, just quickly, obviously this assumes that the district is allocating this funding in its annual budget, that we would be incurring these expenses. If we end up in litigation related to elements of the EPC, such as the DOAS units, then potentially there could be a recovery through litigation of some of these expenses. So if that were to occur, can you talk about how that would impact the cost of the EPC long term?
Yeah, we would talk to our fiscal advisors before we put the loan in place. We want to include a provision that allows us to prepay on outstanding principal if we're able to, so that we can basically avoid some interest expense in the future. So that may be something that happens. So if we recover a large chunk, potentially, we could pay off a chunk of this.
And then that would reduce the annual carrying cost
Correct.
of the EPC.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, because once it's approved by SED that there's a mechanism to pay for it and it's all set, you can use that mechanism, or you can do other things. If you want to pay more, you're able to. Okay, so this is just a thermal image of the elementary classrooms. If you look at the top of the roof line, you can see like this really bright yellow section. And when you look at the soffits from the outside, it just looks like plain wood. Well, there's really not much insulation at all between the outside and the inside, and that shows up as the brighter yellow or high temperature that you can see there. So a lot of it is concentrating some more insulation around the perimeter of the top of the building to improve the tightness and reduce the energy usage. So that's a big component of it. And then the dedicated outdoor air systems. So it's the biggest component. It provides fresh air that is tempered to room temperature. So it's essentially, if your room temperatures are all set for 71, it's constantly providing 71-degree air through these units. And they're designed in such a way that you get very good mixing and uniformity of what that temperature is, so that you don't have the large variations in the air temperature going into the spaces. So it would essentially reduce or eliminate the fresh air that's drawn in through the unit ventilators. Right now, all of our fresh air comes in directly into the classroom. The bottom of every one of those heating units has an air damper in it, and it's basically calibrated to deliver the amount of air that's required by the anticipated number of students that are in the room. That's all calibrated and determined on what it's supposed to be. But by doing it this way, this will allow those units to more effectively heat and cool the rooms because they're not able to do it well, providing the fresh air. Part of it is because you only have about this far before between when the fresh air goes in and to when it comes out to mix all that together. That's part of it. And it will increase the heating capacity of the system. And they're typically roof-mounted units and additional heat pumps, and they may or may not all be in one mechanical package. And then we also have some that are going to be in the attic of the 1908 building. There's also 2 units that are in there. And this is what might be typical of a roof-mounted unit. And then what we have is the existing units, we have to change the controls around in them. So we move it from discharge air temperature control to space temperature control. So that means it doesn't really try to maintain a constant discharge air temperature. It just drives as hot as it needs to in order to get the room temperature where it would be, which is different than the way that they currently work. But when you have the outside air that is delivered by the DOAS at the temperature that you need the room to be, that's the more efficient way of doing it. So that's part of it. And then the outside air dampers in the classrooms would only work when you're doing what's called economizer mode, which means that when the outside air temperature is closer to what you want than the inside temperature, you open the damper up and you just get outside air that's at the temperature you need. So if the room gets hot but it's still pretty cool outside, you open the damper up and get the temperature, and that's what economizer mode is. And then basically the unit ventilators then act as basically a cabinet heater or a cabinet cooler, like you might have a split unit in your house that's just mounted on the wall that doesn't really have outside air. That's the way that would work. And then destratification fans. So spaces like this and also the art room. That's a picture of the art room, and if you look at it, you basically see that the heat is pouring out of that duct, and it's going straight to the windows, where at the top windows in the art room are all single pane glass from 1908. And the heat just goes right out those things. So essentially, this will allow the air to go, the hot air to go down to the ground where the people are. So that's what they're for. And that's just a good visual representation of what that is. And then in some of our storage areas and some of our outdoor lights, there's a handful of fluorescent and other kinds of fixtures around. This would also change out most, if not all, of those. All right, so that's all of what the energy performance contract is. Is there any other questions on those?
So the idea is that with all of these upgrades, there'll be enough energy savings that it'll be able, well, we'll have some guarantee that the energy savings will make a material contribution to the cost.
Will help to
of
offset the
the
cost,
model.
yes.
Correct. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Well, it won't, because the DOAS units are a significant component and they're not necessarily saving energy on their own, it won't offset all of the costs, but it helps the energy savings that are a part of it.
And those DOAS units will be retrofitted on the existing building system, is that correct?
Yeah, so it is, it's likely going to be provided by the same manufacturer, so it'll be integrated with all of the electronics and the systems and everything that we have. And it will, the fresh air ductwork that's currently there, and we'll use some of that, because some of the classrooms do have fresh air ductwork, but then there'll be some more that will be put in. But it is a decent sized project, because there are, there's mechanical units, there's roof disturbances, there's, it's not trivial.
And are we using the original plan to make the determinations about how to put the BOS system on? The one that our former architect can deliver, we're basically trying to deliver that.
Well, we had employed the help of another firm to help us with this design as a part of the discovery process.
Just a comment before we move on, that we are incredibly fortunate to have your engineering background. There's not a lot of business officials out there who can intricately look at heating and cooling systems and know them as well as you do. And very few that take on both roles of like running our building and also business administration. Thank you for your time and energy on this, because you definitely know more about the heating and cooling system than I ever hoped to. So thank you.
Very true.
I appreciate that, thank you.
And
My engineering education, I guess, went somewhere, so that's good.
We use it every day here. We appreciate it.
And I would also just reiterate that so we just talked a lot about the EPC, but you've also put together, again, a great budget. And, to reiterate some of what we talked about tonight and last budget presentation, we are going to be at the cap, so we're not asking for an override. We're funding all of current staffing and programming at existing levels. We're not making any cuts. We're going to be continuing to fund major initiatives like the school lunch and our SPO program. We are going to be investing in we'll continue to invest in the Empowered Classroom, which is a major innovation initiative and professional development initiative. And obviously we've set aside quite a bit of funds for major projects like the outdoor classroom. So really an exceptional budget that I think everybody can be happy with. And, again, a testament to the great leadership that we have in the district with both you and Dr. Stoll and the whole team.
So instead of calling us a bargain, we're really an exceptional value.
Yes, yes, that is true. So the budget also does include the forest project in entirety. So that together with the EPC is just enough to do everything in both of those items.
Can you speak to, because last time we were talking about the front of the building.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah. So.
Go.
So this includes the parking lot, this includes the compostable toilet, this includes the building, this includes all the seating and everything that's around the space, all the site work that's involved with that project. All in the budget is $493,740, and that together with the EPC matches the amount of capital exclusion that we had in last year. This is kind of breaks it down. So what we had as the first presentation is outdoor classroom and the 1908 facade improvement. Those two things together were supposed to not exceed $648,126. And then we had the energy performance contract at the same level as the prior year. But in this presentation, we know the outdoor classroom amount, and we're able to include that whole amount for it. And then energy performance contract, as well as for the facade improvement, it is considered not capital. So we don't really need, it doesn't really need to be budgeted as a non-contingent expense. So what we can do, and I believe that we're going to be able to do, is repurpose existing funds in the current year's budget to start that project. So we'll probably, before the school year is over, have bids for the painting and award and issue purchase orders from the current year's money to do painting. So that's most likely what's going to happen with the facade project, because it is really painting and a handful of storm windows, so it's not, it's considered maintenance. And the architect basically advised us, just, you know, you have the permission to, and you should just go ahead and do that. So that's what we're going to do.
And I think the bottom line takeaway is what we presented in the last budget between capital and EPC, which are all capital projects, are $741,338. What we're proposing in this budget is no different. It's just a shift in where we use those funds. So the whole capital and EPC budgeted amount in this presentation is exactly the same amount as in the first presentation. So there's no change there.
So in summary, we have to allocate 1.7 million of undesignated fund balance to support these expenditures. We're going to tax at the tax levy limit, which is 2.27%, and it only needs simple majority. If the budget would be defeated, the board could hold a revote on June 16th, and where they could propose the same or the revised budget, or they could adopt a contingent budget without doing another vote. Contingent would reduce the amount that we could raise by $264,418. That's the difference between last year's tax levy and the current one. And you would have to cut $264,000 to balance the budget. And that would include staffing cuts that would affect program and administration. And the district would be required to remain under the administrative cap, which is the amount of expenditure that's administrative versus program as a percentage. So the budget is the first proposition, $15,487,328. And then there are two terms of instruction contracts for Haldane and for Highland Falls to renew those 5-year contracts. We are planning to do a budget webinar on Saturday if we have enough people that sign up. If we have people that sign up, we're going to have it. But people have to sign up with Dusty. And then on April 8th, we plan to have our final budget presentation and to adopt the budget. Cool. April 20th, you have to get your candidate petitions in. And then May 6th, we'll have the hearing. May 19th is the vote in the gym. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. So, if people have questions about the budget, members of the public, and want to actually ask questions and engage with Joe and Greg, the opportunity to do that is during the budget webinar this Saturday. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, and if they can't make it, they can call Joe and I. We're happy to answer any questions folks have about the budget. Maybe not tonight, but on another night we present the budget and have a public hearing. We'd like to hear from the public. So, we'd love for people to be on the webinar. If you can't make that, please reach out to Joe and I. We're happy to discuss the budget with our community.
And RSVP, what do people do?
Do they email Dusty Callow,
Email
our
Dusty.
district clerk?
Yeah, we've been setting up already.
We're continuing to remind people through Parent Square regularly to please RSVP. We need to be sitting there alone, just Joe and I staring at each other.
Okay, great. Any other questions on any elements of the budget that we have not already discussed? All right, we will move on to item 6B, which is discussions with Hudson Highlands Land Trust, a very exciting development that I'm very excited about. Okay, so as we discussed during our last board meeting, we have been hard at work on a plan for the outdoor classroom that will serve as a central hub for our environmental education initiatives. while improving access to the school forest for all students. I'm very excited to be able to announce this evening that after our last meeting, the Hudson Highlands Land Trust reached out to the district to share their strong support for this effort and most excitedly to offer to partner with us on this initiative. While nothing has been finalized and there are still a lot of details to work out, we have discussed the contours of a partnership that would include the donation of additional land to the school forest, as well as the sale of a conservation easement that would likely help the district defray construction-related costs for the outdoor classroom. As we work with the Land Trust to nail down the details, we are also re-examining the impact of the proposal on the location and design of the outdoor classroom. We will keep everyone updated as this progresses. For now, we just want to extend our deep gratitude to the Land Trust, including its staff and board, for being willing to partner with us on a shared vision that preserves the school forest for years to come and provides our students with an exceptional educational resource. Any questions on that? So we had a meeting with the Land Trust on Monday. Pete and I attended along with Greg and Joe and talked through really just sort of high level what this would look like, and shared, our mutual excitement about a partnership. We think it could, be a really tremendous opportunity for the district, and cement a lot of what we're doing for the very long term. And the Land Trust has signaled, very strong desire to make something happen. We do have a lot of details, obviously, to work out, but we are working through that. I think that's it. Anything else? Any questions on that?
Yes, just one. How does this impact the timeline in terms of
Right.
what we're pitching to fund for next year? If we're looking to, say, locations, and how comfortable are we as a board with continuing with that amount of money allocated for next year?
Right. So we have looked at that. This has all been very recent, but we talked a lot about that on Monday, and subsequently, I think, certainly if we were to continue with the same amount of funding that we have allocated and that is presented in tonight's budget, it would allow us to move the project forward, sort of regardless of the outcome of these pending partnership discussions, and importantly, begin the submission process to SED, which is going to be required in order for us to get approval to do this project, since it's a capital project for the district. So, I think, what we have presented here with allocating the full funds to move forward with this project will allow us to stay largely on schedule, but subject to change, because it's possible we're going to have to revisit the designs and work with the design committee. If we end up selecting a different location, there's a possibility that I think we will need to re-examine the location that we talked about previously, because we might have other options, and then it's possible that we're going to want to re-examine the scope of the project in some way. So, I think essentially, being able to multi-track, proceed business as usual, put the resources forward that will allow us to continue with the proposals that we've already discussed, while also, of course, working with the Land Trust to cement this new partnership, and then potentially being able to defray some of the construction costs if we allocate the funds in this year's budget or next year's budget.
And in terms of design, we've done some design work, but it's preliminary. I mean, it was very light, it wasn't detailed renderings of everything and specs, and like that was going to be one of the next steps as as the project developed. So we've spent some time and money, on that, but that's not like it's throw it in the garbage. It's not wasted. It's all, it all can be applied to whatever happens next.
The other thing that you can do is if at some point there is a sale and something that has to go to the public, at that time you could ask the public to if there's proceeds of that sale, you could ask the public to use some of it to support whatever the new design might be.
And the funding essentially for this, as we look at those numbers, was coming out of fund balance regardless, because we're taking 1.7 out of fund balance, so it's keeping, you could think of it as like that 500,000 is fund balance essentially.
Yes.
Being appropriated with, because Because we had enough of a design to say
Yeah.
this is what we plan to do. And that design could go almost anywhere, because it's a bathroom and an outdoor classroom
Right,
and
the,
a parking area.
it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that if this does move forward in the way that we were discussing, I know there's a lot of details to work out, but the proceeds from the sale wouldn't necessarily have to be applied to this project at all. Could be used to,
Refill some fund balance, it's money.
yeah, to do whatever else the district needs, way beyond like just this project for.
I would think of it, if
Structural
anything
desks.
does become of it, and as Dan said, in order to move the project forward, we have to be able to allocate funds towards it, because an SED project, in order to be approved, you have to show them how you're paying for it, and then it's sort of approved. But as Peter said, if there's any monetary funds that come in because of the partnership with Don Islands Trust, it'd be, the board can decide, the community can decide, how do you want to use it, whether it be fund balance or offset other costs of the district. Think of it about expenditures and revenue. It increases your revenue, which helps you on your expenditure side.
Could you potentially use any potential revenue that might come in to set aside to keep the classroom up to date and maintenance on the project?
It would be difficult to do that on a multi-year basis, because there's not really a mechanism that allows you to set aside funds for a specific purpose, but if you put it into fund balance and you budget for it every year, you're essentially doing it.
Because I'm thinking of districts that have like turf fields and somehow have a fund to keep replenishing the turf fields that,
They have a repairs usually,
A
on,
repairs.
like,
repair.
a
A
voter.
repair reserve, so
Reserve. We
you could establish a repair reserve, and you could say to the public you want to put up to a certain amount of money in it, but then when it comes time to spend it, you have to ask them for
Yeah.
permission.
I would prefer to, just from
More
looking at the
flexibility.
reserves, I would keep it in the undesignated fund balance instead of, because waiting for voter approval to use fund balance, I think is a little bit trickier.
Yeah, capital repair reserves is one of the most restricted ones that they have, because it's, you have to have permission to put it in, and how much, and when, and permission to take it out, so it's annoying.
We're also keeping the funds in the budget for this coming year also might mean we could move ahead. So let's say it takes a little bit longer to go back to the design board and get a new design that everyone's happy with. We could still potentially move forward if we have a new site, or just any site confirmed. We could still move forward with things like the bathroom, for example, that would be relatively easy to get up and running, or maybe some of the site work, even if it takes us a little bit longer on the design process.
And this is going to be most likely to go on, happens a huge benefit to the project in terms of the accessibility of it for more students. So the original idea was, fairly small in how many students you could get up there at any one time. This potentially, again, we haven't really examined it in detail, so no promises, but potentially you could bring larger or more buses into this particular area that we're talking about. This all happens, which would just make the project better and more interesting. If you could have, the fifth grade and the kindergartners, their buddies out there together, or, whatever it may be the instruction that the teachers want. So, again, I think having to redo some of the design is all going to be, more positive direction. It's not like restricting us or making the project somehow worse. It's going to be better. So if we do have to spend a little extra on that design, it's going to be, pointing towards something that's really positive.
I also think you make a good point that while we're talking about allocating funds right now, there's still a lot of chance for the community to have a lot of input in what this space looks like for this community, and I think that's really important. And I think very welcome by all of us if people have more thoughts or suggestions. I thought your design group was great in terms of bringing in community members, and it sounds like there's a lot of space still for that.
Yeah, maybe we can reconstitute that if need be, if we're changing the site in some substantial way.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you again to the Land Trust. We're very excited about the partnership opportunity, and we will keep the community informed as things move forward. Moving on to the district plan review and approval for 2026 and 2029.
A lot of presentations this evening, a lot of good discussion too. One of the things that I'm presenting this evening is all districts in New York State every 3 years have to submit and be approved for a technology, an instructional technology plan. I'm going to go over this evening what the proposed technology plan is for the Garrison School District. Ours expires at the end of this year. This plan will take us from 2026 through 2029. First and foremost, this technology plan, I'm going to give you an overview of our overview of the plan, but also a strategic alignment. We strategically align the goals of this plan with the goals that we have as a district, with the goals that we have as a building. Number one, this plan looks to leverage technology to enhance our teaching and learning, as well as our operational efficiency. And if you saw in our budget, the school district's budget is where the priorities are. Our priorities are with teaching and learning, and this plan is aligned to those too. So this plan was developed in collaboration. We met a few times, had an ability for teachers to weigh in on some ideas of the plan, as well as give us some feedback about the plan. So there's a lot of teacher voice in here, and our teachers 100% approve of what we're sharing with you this evening. So they're all in agreement that the goals of this plan and where we want to go is where they want to go to. And that's not easy to do in any district, but here we have an incredible staff that works collaboratively to ensure that we're all rowing in the same direction. This plan supports our continued one-to-one device program, ensuring that all students, which they do, have equitable access to learning tools at any time. But it also looks to have us future ready. A lot of what we talked about, we want our instruction future ready. We need our technology to be future ready as well. And so it looks at some infrastructure upgrades, but also professional learning investments that position the district for sustainable technology growth. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the instructional integration and professional goals. That's goal one. We want to make sure that our first goal is we want to focus on balanced and effective use of digital tools to enhance learning, grounded in pedagogical frameworks. We don't want just kids like with their faces in Chromebooks all day, right? It has to be, the technology is a vehicle with, where teachers use with purpose and intent. We want to make sure that our targeted professional development looks at how teachers can use this effectively and with intentionality as well. So we're looking at training that includes like blended learning, formative assessments, differentiated instructional strategies, many of the things that Mike is doing, whether it be through an empowered classroom or whether it be for our future focused professional learning. We want to make sure that the digital tools support student learning, deeper engagement, providing multiple pathways for students to demonstrate understanding. And we also want to make sure that we embed coaching and cross-grade collaboration and ensure long-term success and adoption of how we integrate technology. We also, in order to do this, we've got to keep our infrastructure up to date, and we need to make sure that our learning environments are also up to date. So goal two really looks at modernizing our infrastructure and innovative, looking at supporting our innovative makerspace lab. And again, I will say this, thanks to Peter Lesser and his wife Tina, we're able to do that, and that'll be the space back here, and we're working on how to design that. But just because we design a space, we have to learn how to use it, we have to make sure that it's equipped, we have to make sure that it's part of our instruction. So there's two things here. One is the infrastructure part. Joe talked a little bit about our wireless access points that are end of life. And just because they're old, well, why don't you, they still work, why don't you use them? Well, they're not supported anymore, and what that means is that, like, they're susceptible to hacks, they're susceptible to malware, and that becomes a real security issue. So we don't have a choice when they're not supported anymore. These access points are end of life and need to be replaced this summer. So this plan supports what we talked about in the budget, which is upgrading those. The other thing that again will be end of life and not supported anymore is our VoIP system, our voice over IP system. This is critical to everything that we do. It's our communication tool. In the building, out of the building, 911 calls. The other thing that we want to do is we want to integrate emergency management through a new VoIP system that's integrated in our Valcom, using Valcom, in our clocks that are upgraded. So we've got a little bit of a mismatched system here with Fortinet VoIP and wireless that don't really always work perfectly together. So we want to invest over the next 3 years of integrating a new VoIP system with new wireless AP devices, so that over the next 3 years we have a system that is fully supported and upgraded, so that places like our makerspace, places like our classroom, places like our learning commons, even our outdoor pavilion, have connectivity, and that students can engage in instruction no matter what location they are in a safe way. So our Makerspace Lab, again, thanks to the generosity of the lessers, we're looking at, and you can put that as part of your plan about, like, if you have donation, you can put that as part of your plan. And part of our plan is to support the Makerspace. So encourages hands-on learning, maybe robotics, engineering design, and sustainability-focused projects. Again, very much in line with our instructional priorities here. We also want to enhance other learning environments, such as flexible instructional spaces that promote creativity and experimentation and practical application of classroom concepts for deeper learning. So, that's goal 3 for us. Lastly, we just want to make sure that this board knows the plan that was shared with you has to be submitted to the Lower Hudson Regional Information Center. They're going to review it. It gets sent up to SED to a portal. But I want to make sure that this board is comfortable that it is aligned with the New York State education priorities. It is aligned with making sure technology is meaningfully integrated in learning. Talks about the plan includes infrastructure upgrades, professional training, and the partnerships that support technology use, and as well as leadership. And that we're going to monitor the progress using observations, student work analysis, and digital usage data to make sure that when we submit to SCD this plan, our community is well aware of the things that we're doing. So I know I went through that quickly, but I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to review it with the board, and if the board is supportive of this plan, the recommendation is that we move forward and have this plan submitted to the RIC for review and ultimately the New York State Education Department. I'm happy to answer any questions or comments. I know I went quickly.
Thanks, Greg. Any questions on the technology plan?
I just have one comment. Well, first of all, for those of you that might not know, this is kind of what I do all day long.
I was a little worried, Jen.
I did have one wordsmithing thing that...
I made the change, Jen. Thank you.
But I think this is really well done, and I like how the goals are aligned and how they're not so specific that we're doing X, Y, and Z, but really give us leverage to meet the needs based on what's available, knowing what's going on in the world of technology. And that is my other comment, which is just last week, Apple released the Apple Neo. And I think it's, as I look at you and Mike both on Apple computers here, and know the built-in creativity tools and how that might well align with a lot of the work that is even coming from Portrait of a Graduate. And I know it's a big jump to move from Chromebooks to Apple, but the price point looks pretty amazing, and it might be worth exploring.
Jen, thank you for that comment. We were just having this discussion about as our, at least at first, our teacher devices go EOL, looking at having some early adopters who maybe want to go. Typically, our teachers use window-based laptops that can be anywhere from $800 to $1,200. The NEOs we looked at, which are in the 500s. And we may pilot a couple and make sure that they work well within our environment. But again, if we have teachers that can use that device, it can be cost effective as well as
Cheaper than the prices of Chromebooks at this point.
Yeah. You know, we're not there yet, but we definitely want to test it in the environment. We're, you know, being a former tech person, I was thinking along those same lines. So thank you for that comment. I appreciate it.
Can I ask a follow-up question for our tech people in the room? Are you seeing a lot of other districts? I know one of our high school partners currently is on Apple. Are you seeing a lot of other districts move over to Apple and away from Chromebooks, which have been like the...
So one of our districts has been an Apple Distinguished School for 20 years. What I'm seeing in the region is I have, of the 18 component districts I work closely with, 3 are investing heavily in Apple away from Chromebooks. But I was just in a conversation last week with the Chromebook prices that are coming in. They're like, we're going to have to buy the Apple devices because we can't afford the Chromebook devices. But from a personal lens, like the creativity tools that come built into an Apple, the iMovie, the GarageBand, Freeform. I also just became an Apple learning coach, so I'm a little well versed in that. It just blows away the other kinds of things that you can do. They are not touchscreens though, so they're not an iPad or a touchscreen Chromebook. So there are a lot of considerations. But I love the idea, and a lot of districts next year are talking about we're going to pilot it with a grade level. We're going to give 4 teachers who are willing to be early adopters the chance to try it. Because there's also the mobile device management, there's a little bit of a learning curve. But a lot of our districts have some of each.
Yeah, and one of the things just to add to that, and just to piggyback on what Jen said, for us, we don't have instructional technology coaches. We don't have an infrastructure that will support teachers in a migration to a new platform, an iOS platform. So we got to do it a little bit more cautiously and thoughtfully in a district like ours to ensure that if we make a leap to a new environment, that our teachers are ready for it from professional development, that our tech team is ready to manage you know, a whole different set of devices on our network. So, you know, for us, it's definitely worth the effort. It's why we want to pilot it with teachers so that kids don't get frustrated and don't have lack of access. But once we get a little bit more comfortable, we can look to see if it's a solution that works for us. Cost-wise, we know it's a much better play. But to do a full adoption right now, I think would kind of stop us in our tracks a little bit. So we'll do it thoughtfully, but the thought is like already in our minds and certainly not part of this plan. But it's not specific. It could be. A NEO could be a solution that we, you know, first at staff in the next 3 years, and then we look at when a lot of our student devices, you know, cycle out 5-6 years and become EOL.
Sorry, Jen, just a quick question. And you can just punt it. Is there an AI integration component on the NEOs at all? Just because I know that's where the market's moving.
I touched one for the first time on Thursday. I didn't look for an AI component.
Okay. Yeah, I just know that they're starting to move AI integration.
It's in there.
In
Okay.
there, yeah.
The Apple.
Plan looks great.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Moving on, oh no, we have to adopt it. So, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approves the district technology plan 2026 through 2029 as presented. May I have a motion?
Motion.
So moved.
All-
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, moving on to item 6D. This is discussion and approval change designation of official newspaper. Do we need to discuss this one? Anything to say on this one?
Just for the public to know, PCNR recently announced that it will transition to a digital-only publication. This change has impacts for our district under New York State, an official newspaper for a district. For legal notices must meet the statutory definition of a newspaper of general circulation, meaning that it's published at least week, contains news, editorials, and be of paid print circulation, so they no longer qualify as that. That's why this discussion is on, and as well as the resolution for the Putnam County News Recorder. And that designates the Putnam County Press to be the official paper as opposed to PCNR.
Got it, thank you. Questions? Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby removes the designation of official newspaper for the district for the Putnam County News and Recorder, and further designates the Putnam County Press as an official newspaper for the district for the 25-26 school year effective March 19th, 2026. May I have a motion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Moving on to final review and adoption of the 2026-2027 Board of Education meeting schedule. Has everyone had a chance to review the schedule? I believe it's the same as last time we looked at it.
There's a change.
Is there a change? Sorry.
Reorg meeting, but it hasn't been determined the date, right?
Right, I think that's determined the date yet.
Is that the only change? The real meeting?
So the reorg
It
meeting,
can't be on 2 days.
which we had approved really when we did last year, this current year's calendar, because we always try to do that to have the reorg meeting set. There was a conflict, so the discussion was we could either do it the 9th or the 15th. If you want to keep it on a Wednesday, we could do the 15th. If you wanted to move it from the 8th to the 9th, we could do that as well, whatever your preference was.
But everything else was, all the other dates were the same as the last time?
Yes.
I already put my tolerance on.
I would. Sorry. I don't have a strong preference on this. I would probably just keep it on a Wednesday.
I would prefer the 15th if
All
that's
of the
possible.
things are equal.
15th is better for me too.
Okay.
Sad.
It sounds like the 15th, just so we can make
Yeah.
a change and set it up.
Let's go, Eric, is that good for you? Let's go with the 15th. So we're still adopting, right?
Yes, and then I did have at the bottom, which, you don't have to decide now for next year's reorg. We could do the 7th and
Okay, let's,
Obviously, you want to use that.
what?
I don't think it's that early, so.
Let's hold on that. Okay. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby approves and adopts the 2026-2027 Board of Education meeting schedule as amended.
Well, we had it either or, so, yeah, you can say
Okay.
it's amended.
May I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Moving on to item 6F, pre-K lottery.
Right, I guess that's me, and I want to make sure the board and the community, I did share this with the Parent Square with our community, we've been calling parents. I just want to let everybody know that, as we all know, our pre-K program is capped at 18. If we go beyond 18, we need to be in a lottery. And what has to happen is that you not only need to apply, but you need to complete every form in the application and have it submitted by March 30th by 4 p.m. Right, the applications right now, they're not all completed, but we have over 18 applications in. If they're all completed by March 30th, we will have a lottery. Families will be notified on April 1st, because someone could put the registration in and pull it out, and we're at 18. So, we won't know 100%, but it's looking like we'll need a lottery. But we'll know on April 1st, we're going to immediately notify families if they have a completed application due by the deadline. They will get a number, a lottery number, on April 1st. On April 8th, we'll actually hold a lottery, and we actually got one of the ball machines. That it came in today, we'll test it. We got a ball machine, so we're like literally gonna have a lottery, like old school, when you look down the news and
You can
there's a
start
ball.
doing bingo nights.
Yeah, we could.
It is.
Dual purpose. But I no, the thing is, we encourage families that are in the lottery to either, we will live stream it on our YouTube channel, or come here and watch it. We are gonna try to get a third party to actually spin and call the numbers that come up. So after the lottery, we're going to do placement notifications by April 9th. This is all in our plan that's available on our Q&A on our website under our Universal Pre-K tab. But placement notifications, so if you obtain a lottery, you win one of the lottery spots, we'll notify you by April 9th. At that point, anybody that did not win the lottery will be on a wait list, and then what will happen is people have to accept their placement by April 13th at 4 p.m. Otherwise, we'll go to the next person in the lottery. We'll continue to draw past the 18 for everybody in the lottery, and those will be the people, if someone declines the spot, the next person in the lottery, number 19, will be the first one to get that spot, and so on and so forth. So we're going to continue to send out reminders. We're making calls to the families whose applications are not 100% complete, and we're reminding them by email and by personal phone calls to get all that stuff in so that they're eligible for the lottery. So again, I encourage you, if you haven't put an application in, please do so by the deadline and make sure all your forms are complete. If you submitted an application and got a call from us or an email from us that you're missing some material, please get those in as soon as possible so that you can be considered for the lottery. So if on April 1st someone sends in an application and says, well, I'm not in the lottery, it's because we have to follow our procedures with this deadline. So I just wanted to share with the board, publicly with the community, that this is the direction it looks like our lottery is probable.
I have one quick question for you. If you have triplets
Yes, great question. Each of them gets a number, so
separately, so you
Separately.
have two of your children
it is a statistical possibility that if you have twins or triplets, they each get an individual lottery number, 1, 2, or 3, or none of them could get a lottery spot.
Okay, thank you.
Can you also just speak to why we have a lottery for pre-K, but not for anything else?
Yeah, universal pre-K is not required by law. Not every district has a universal pre-K. There's also staffing requirements that happen with pre-K. If you go above the 18, it's a whole different staffing requirements that we're not outfitted to do. The other thing is we don't also have space to open up another section. And even though in the governor's proposal, it's not in law yet, but even though the governor's proposal and people like Assemblyperson Levenberg has supported an increase of $10,000 per UPK kid, it still doesn't 100% cover the cost. So the more students that you have, opening another section would be additional cost to the district that's not necessarily funded on a 1-to-1 ratio with even increasing universal pre-K grants.
Thanks.
Just as a funding question on that, I think both the Senate and the Assembly, based on what I've seen, are supporting, which
Yes.
I'm very grateful for the additional funding. The Senate budget also suggested that they would like to see transportation become aidable for pre-K. Does anyone have any thought? I mean, do you want to speak to what that changes if that becomes?
Well, I don't think it necessarily changes a lot. It would depend on where the pre-K students are, how they would fit, as far as.
But if it becomes aidable, that means right now we don't transport pre-K. If it becomes aidable, we do transport pre-K.
We could.
We could. It becomes an option.
I mean, our aid ratio is 10%, so I mean, it's not like it's a lot of money that comes in, but you have permission to, and there is money that comes in.
I know some districts in the area are really pushing that, and I wasn't sure how it.
I mean, this would be a further discussion with this board about the direction that you want to go, but it's potentially that they could fit in their buses, or it's potentially could add runs that aren't necessarily funded 100% by, 10% would be the reimbursement ratio for that. Could throw a bus, over a capacity issue, and it could make us have to route differently. So, but we're happy to have that discussion.
And there's also a timing thing, that pre-K ends at a different time, which would create a challenge.
We do control that.
Transit.
We do, I mean, there's nothing that says we can't, but I will tell you this, it does have staffing implications. Right now, and I'll tell you how, right now our pre-K teacher, because they don't have the last 30 minutes of the day, we're able to leverage that teacher by doing intervention services with younger kids. So if we had to do that, what we would have to do is take out some intervention services that teacher provides. So it's definitely worth a discussion. It's, you know, something we should definitely have a public discussion about if it becomes an option.
I think it was only the Senate bill, so I don't know how much traction it's gonna get, but I was just curious, thank you.
Any other questions about pre-K lottery? All right, moving on to our first public comment session. I'm going to skip right through it because we have nobody in the audience. Save us the time since we're getting late. And move on to acceptance of minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the minutes of the regular workshop meeting of March 4th, 2026.
So, second.
Any questions? Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Moving on to financial reports, acceptance of the treasurer's report and claims audit report. Joe, any comments, anything notable on these?
No, this is just standard stuff that we have.
Questions or comments from the board? Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the treasurer's report for February 2026 and further accepts the claims audit report for February 2026 as presented. I have a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Committee reports. Planning committee report with Jocelyn.
I feel so bad that I'm going to do it so quick, but it should represent the exact opposite of what Mike and the committee members and the faculty are putting in the time they're putting into all this work that we reviewed. We just met before this meeting, and Mike gave us 2 presentations. One, an update on the environmental ed committee, who's planning a 5-year plan. It's amazing. They've incorporated student feedback. They've got great alignment with all of their goals and core components and focus areas. You're going to meet on June 3rd for the final committee meeting to really just finalize it and then potentially present it to us and the public that evening. And I can't believe how much work. And I mean, I can't believe the commitment you put in. I don't even know how you have the time to do it.
So can I just, is that a curriculum mapping exercise?
So
or
that's
what
the
is that?
environmental ed plan, because there is a curriculum mapping
Gotcha.
that Mike and the faculty are also all working on, that he updated us on. Almost through the math curriculum mapping across all the grades. Goal is to complete math and ELA by the end of this school year, so that we can demonstrate, what our students are learning and alignment over the grades, and it will be publicly available too for our community to see what we anticipate students learning. I mean, it's a shame to do it quickly, but I know that it'll be presented officially to us, so we'll have more time to really.
Do we have a date for that?
We're hoping June 3rd we'll do the presentation of the 5-year environmental plan. And then with the board's thumbs up, we will be able to publicly post it.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Did I miss anything that you wanted to convey? No.
Any questions for Jocelyn? All right, thanks, Jocelyn. Moving on to approval of the CSE CPSE recommendations. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District approve the Committee on Special Education and Committee on Preschool Special Education recommendations and student placements. May I have a motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Policy readings. We have 4 second readings. Jen, do you want to go through these?
I'll just go through this really quickly. The first one is the safety school plan. This was minor changes to reflect changes in the school safety plan. The second one, concussion management, is a change in a specific word from seek to obtain, but Dr. Stoll noted that, called me, was it last week or this week?
They're all blending together.
They're all blending together, but they called me recently, and he had a really good point that I wanted to bring to the board's attention, which is
we don't have a concussion protocol in place right now, and should we determine that we are going to put one in place, this policy might need to come back to the board for further adoption stating that. Is that?
Well, we have a concussion management process, but what it says as part of that process, we don't have impact testing, which is a neurocognitive baseline and then post-concussive testing. It says we're not by law required to, so I said to Jen, the policy says the district may implement neurocognitive testing as part of its concussion management protocol. We don't do it. I wanted to check to see if we did it or didn't do it, and we don't do it. The team, Melissa and Pat, are looking into it. I think the language, it's up to the board. The language saying may allows us to have the flexibility, but we will come back to the board if we do decide to do it, and then we could change the language of the policy if that's the will of the board. But I just wanted to bring it up.
As a really good point, like it's something we may do at this point, and if we decide that we're going to require it, then we should change the policy to match what our procedure would be.
We might also be able to get it through our insurance company, because I think they want us to have it, and they have something to offer.
That's great. The third policy, the wellness policy, changes are made to reflect that we now do have the federal school lunch program. And then the fourth policy, the school health service, the language changed to reflect that we are a K-8 district. So no changes have been made since the first reading on any of these, but just the one note about the concussion policy that we may be coming back to the board for further discussion on that sooner than later, like not in 3 years.
Great, thank you, Jen. Any questions on any of these 4 policies? We have to do separate votes on each of these, so let me run through these. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee Chair, hereby approves and adopts Policy 5681, School Safety Plans as presented. May I have a motion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Second reading and approval of Policy 7522, Concussion Management. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee Chair, hereby approves and adopts Policy 7522, Concussion Management as presented. May I have a motion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Second reading and approval of Policy 5661, Wellness. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee Chair, hereby approves and adopts Policy 5661, Wellness as presented. Motion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Second reading and approval of Policy 7510, School Health Services. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee Chair, hereby approves and adopts Policy 7510, School Health Services as presented. Motion? Approved. All in favor? Sorry. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Thank you all. Personnel items. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, does hereby approve the items of the personnel consent agenda as presented. May I have a motion? Anything we need to flag in these 3 items?
The only thing I'll say is we did receive a resignation from our Spanish teacher, Ms. Enderly. I just want to, number one, thank Ms. Enderly for her energy and her commitment to our kids and our school community. I just want to acknowledge all the great work that she's done with us. And whatever her next endeavor is, she'll always have a special place here in Garrison in her heart. So thank you, Ms. Enderly, for all of your work with our kids and our community at large.
Absolutely. Thank you to Ms. Enderly for her service to the community, and we wish her the very best. Any other questions or comments on these items? All right. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Moving on to the new business. Approval of new business items. out, okay.
Our number.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approves the new business items as presented. May I have a motion?
Second.
And we have 5 items here. Request for approval of participation in cooperative bids for 2026-2027 school year with Southern Westchester BOCES. Approval of sports mergers for the 2026-2027 school year with Haldane Central School District. Approval of amendment of instruction agreement with Cotton Valley Central School District. Request for approval for award of bid to Titan Roofing Inc. of Springfield, Massachusetts. And request for approval of award of bid with S&P Consultants Inc. of Rivervale, New Jersey. Greg or Joe, do you want to speak to any of these?
Yeah, I'll speak to A and E and F. So, or actually B, excuse me. So the Southern Westchester BOCES bids, this allows us to purchase things that they bid on half of all the schools that are participating, and we go through and pick things that we might purchase in the next school year. So this allows us to access for bid pricing of some of these items. That's that one. We do, it doesn't cost us anything to participate, so if there's a good price, we can just use the bid price for that item. And then I have 2, we did do bids for the 2025 project, so this is the next step. It was SED approved, there were specs that were created, went out to bid. The bids came in at a good price. They're all, so all in, it's going to be under our budget, and we're able to do the entire projects with all the alternates. So there's 2 contractors. One is going to do the roofing of the 1908 building and over Allison's office, and the abatement and the gutters. And then the other one is doing all the masonry work. So that's the whole front sidewalk, all 3 staircases, the curb, tying in the gutters into the catch basins and in the parking lot, as well as masonry improvements around the campus for retaining walls and all that. So the bids together are $467,224, and when you put that together with the special testing and monitoring, as well as the architect's fee, we're well under. So there is some additional concrete work that's probably also going to have to be done, because there's some settling on a piece that wasn't part of the original plan. It looks like we're going to need to do that too, and that should fit as well. So it's all good.
And 1908 roofing might happen during the school year, is that right?
It could happen during the school year, some of it, because it's, provided they keep that exit clear, it's not a really high noise, process, and there's not a lot of regular classes in that area, so.
Yeah, and then masonry would be the summer, right?
Masonry would be the summer, because we're basically taking all the masonry elements off the front of the building, and we couldn't do that and have regular dismissal with buses anymore. Most likely what we're going to have to do is, those staff that are here in summer and kids that participate in any summer programs we have are probably going to have to enter at the end of the breezeway by the gym, and that'll be the entrance, because the rest will, once you remove the staircases, they're not obviously coming in any of those doors, so, yeah.
Okay. Any questions about any of those?
I just wanted to mention the sports mergers for
Yep.
next year. I want to thank Haldane, Dr. Duffy, their superintendent, myself, Tom, their athletic director, Patrick, ours. We sit, we make sure that both kids from the Haldane community and the Garrison community have a place to bring them modified sports every year. And we go through sport by sport, season by season, and make sure that if we have to hold 2 teams like we did with boys soccer, we hold 2 teams so that either Garrison kids can play, or if we have to host a team for like girls basketball, so Haldane kids have a place to play. Dr. Duffy and I are committed to making sure that our kids have an athletic experience.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions? All in in favor of the new business items as presented? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That brings us to our second public comment, which we will skip through, and then board member comment. Jocelyn?
Thanks to people who prepared the budget presentation, like Joe and Greg, for being creative in how we can really address the issues that you brought up. Thanks.
Eric?
Rather long one, no, I'm just kidding.
Still on his head. That's pretty good.
I just want to thank Pete and everybody else for all the great work on the outdoor classroom, Dan and everybody else on the negotiations, and again, great work on the budget.
Jeff?
So great work on the budget, great work on all the curriculum work. I sometimes don't know that we realize how lucky we are to have this kind of work happening here, so thank you.
Nothing for me. Pete?
Mike, Greg, Nick Berger, and Tina Park, my wife, and I all went to the Chappaqua School District. That wasn't this week, was it?
It was Friday.
It was
Last
Friday.
Friday. So Mel, I told you, I'll
Right,
mail
right.
it again.
And it was great, so a big thank you to Dr. Pease to take us around to 3 different schools to see their maker spaces. It's really impressive what they've done, and we just got so much inspiration from them. And what I like about the way we're doing this and the way we're handling the Forest Classroom is we're creating these spaces not just because we want to have these wonderful spaces, but because it really ties into student learning and teacher instruction. And to have Mike there taking furious notes in Chappaqua, I can tell he was getting a lot of ideas, and Meg Berger was as well. Like, these are some of the people that are really going to make these spaces into something really special, not just aesthetically and all that, but just instructionally and in terms of student learning. So I think I'm just very excited about both of those projects for that reason.
Great. Thanks, Pete. So are we. Sarah?
No further comment.
All right. So we will enter into executive session. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby enters into executive session for the purpose of receiving legal counsel and discussing collective bargaining negotiations with the GTA pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. May I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We will adjourn the meeting without any further action taken.